live from the Coachella Valley. Time for another hour of the desert scene. Art exhibitions to modernism, music festivals to live theater, big screen, little screen, and very little screen. This is the Culture Corner with Bonnie Gilgallen and Brian Mendoza. Here's Bonnie and Brayan on iHub Radio.
Hey, welcome back to the Culture Corner with Bonnie and Brayan. We have an exciting guest. They're actually the artistic director of the Desert Ensemble Theatre Company. Are you there, Shawn?
Hey, how's it going, Brian?
Hey, and I'm sorry, I wrote it's executive director. I wrote that down wrong. Sorry about that. My fault.
Well, we got to give people credit.
Yeah. So Jerome Elliott is artistic director. Shawn Ambramowitz is executive director. So I wanted to talk to you guys about this $10,000 CARES grant that you just got. That's really exciting.
It's extremely exciting and takes a huge weight off of our shoulders and allows us to just do so much more. So yeah, we were very elated and surprised when we received it, and we're extremely excited for the future and being what we're able to do with the money.
So did a number of different organizations apply for this? What was the procedure you had to go through?
So, just like most grants, we had to write up a proposal, we had to submit our budget, we had to talk about reopening plans, and I don't know the exact number of how many people specifically applied for the grant, but I do know that there was a large majority from a past email. Okay. So this is all of Riverside County. So the fact that we were able to get a very sizable portion of a grant was just phenomenal. And the grants ranged from like $2,500 to $10,000. So we got the maximum.
All right. So tell us about what, I know theaters have been in a tough spot, since this all started back in March. I guess your plans have to be kind of fluid, don't they? Based on what's happening with the virus. Yeah. So what are your plans sort of at this point about moving forward into a season?
Yeah, so right now we haven't announced our season yet. We hope to announce later in fall in terms of reopening. But going back to the grant, it's specifically what it will allow us to do is to pay for a lot of our general expenses, which is what the grants allow to be used for, as well as allow us to produce original content. Because I think it was now 2 months ago, we received another grant for about $1,500 that allowed us to produce 3 specific original pieces that we presented online, either via Zoom or StreamYard. Mm-hmm. And our patrons were able to watch these original pieces about COVID and how people are dealing with it. And we took this kind of really cool, different approach. As much as we theater folks like to say it's theater, it's never going to be theater because it's, you need the audience.
Right.
But it still allows us to connect with our patrons. And so right now, we haven't announced our plans for the fall. We'll do that later into next year. And we're just hopefully going to produce more new original content, especially with this grant.
I wanted to ask you about your streaming content. And you said they're original pieces, but can you tell us more about that? Like, other than COVID, what other issues do you address in that? And are they like PSAs, like fictional works, or I guess almost like vlog style, documentary style,
or mini plays,
plays?
Tell us more about with the ones that you did already.
Absolutely. So we've only done 3 so far, and that was with the original grant that we received several months ago. With this grant, we actually have a team that's going to be cultivating more new work where we hope to break out of the COVID type of dialogue that we've been having for the past with the past couple of performances. So ideally what we'd like to do is we'd like to break it out into 2 parts, where one part's educational, where we still connect with our student interns that work with us, where we teach them maybe lighting design. Hey, this is what you should do, or hey, here's some really cool apps and let me show you how to do it, and that'll be specifically delivered to our student interns. And then the other aspect of original content is we'd love to produce some, actual original pieces in regards to plays, whether that be about current social issues or something that's fictional, something that, is, comedic, that just lightens up the spirit. So right now the sky's the limit for us, and we'll see where it takes us. That's for sure.
Are you thinking of trying to keep these pieces that you're going to produce in the future to a certain time limit, like short things like 20 minutes, half an hour, or does it vary a lot?
That's a really good question. I believe for the one, I don't have an answer.
Okay, fair enough.
I was going to give you an answer. I would say that in regards to the educational pieces, we would limit it to about, I'd say, a couple minutes. And in regards to the pieces that are reaching out to our donors and our patrons, we'd like to have that be a little longer. So whether that be 10 minutes or 15 minutes, I know that for sure someone's not going to sit for a full hour on their computer watching or on their phone. So there is going to probably have to be some kind of time limit, and I think 15 minutes might do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good time. So tell me about the theater, the Pearl McManus Theater. I mean, where everyone's in the same boat. I mean, theaters are all on the same boat. So the grants, I'm assuming, allow you to pay your rent or lights or whatever expenses are. So you're pretty confident then when down the road, when this is all gone away, you will remain at the Pearl McManus Theater as far as performances?
I mean, so far right now, yes.
Okay.
Of course, as you know, Bonnie, we have such a limited amount of performance space in Palm Springs.
Right.
And since 90% of our patrons live in Palm Springs, we really want to stay in Palm Springs. And, we love working with the Pearl McManus and the women's club that's there. It's a beautiful venue. It's definitely unique. It's definitely a little older.
Yeah.
But we've made some improvements, as well as Desert, which is another theater company that shares a space with us.
Right.
But right now we have no plans on leaving. Hopefully we can stay and, perform there. It all depends on what the state says and what the federal government says in regards to live performances and venues. I mean, it's a little scary right now in terms of theater because there's no time. There's no definitive
dates.
answer
There's
on
no
what
date.
we should do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you have people?
It's tough.
Do you have people submitting as far as these the original pieces that you might do online down the road? Do you have people submitting them, or do you have a committee that's kind of writing stuff or going through short plays that people have submitted in the past, or how are you doing that? How are you coming up with what you're going to actually produce?
No, great question. So we have a mixture. We have been, over the past couple of years, have had several online submissions. And we welcome all submissions. So if anybody writes a piece, please send it to us, detctheater@gmail.com. And we'd love to read it, because if it turns out that this piece is in line with our artistic vision, then let's definitely produce it. We do have a resident playwright, which is Tony Padilla, who we produce at least one of his shows every single year.
Love Tony. Yay. Okay.
Love Tony. So he's constantly giving us new pieces to look over and to read. And, it's just, we've received a lot, but we still also, Jerome and I, and now with our new board members, because we just expanded our board now to 9.
Excellent.
So now we have more time to read more shows that are off Broadway, that have maybe just been released but haven't really been picked up by Dramatist Playwright Services, to expand our horizons.
Tell me about the board, because I think a lot of people don't know. A theater company board. What do they do? And I'm guessing it might vary from organization to organization as to how involved. I know a lot of times they help raise money or maybe put up some of their own money. And how involved are they in decisions about production and that kind of thing?
So we brand ourselves and we hold it true as a local community professional nonprofit theater company. I know that's a mouthful to say.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Ideally, we want our board members to have not just a say, but to be actively involved. So we don't require any kind of financial contribution from our board members.
Okay.
But we do require time. We require, dedication. And with our new board that, for instance, we just added, again, several positions. Charles Herrera just joined our board. Desiree Clark, Ling, Jeremiah Rhodes, and Donna Lawton.
Okay.
They're phenomenal. And so with that, they're going to have a say artistically, as well as, how do we run our organization? Because that's what a true community is about, right? Everybody has a voice, everybody has a say, and let's move forward together so we're all on the same path and the same road.
I actually had a question about your reopening plans now. For you, what do you anticipate will be the first night back? Is it going to be full capacity? Is it going to be 25% capacity? What do you imagine the first night with an audience?
Great question. One can dream, right?
Yeah.
If only.
If only. Ideally, what I see is no matter what, when live theater comes back, we're going to be at limited capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're able to seat comfortably 100 seats, we're going to be able to max out the base stuff of what the state and the Fed says. So if that's 25% of our house, that's 25 seats comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I think the demand will be there. I think the restrictions will also be there. So that kind of throws a wrench into the system, because we could absolutely fill up the house probably that first week, because they're vying. Yeah. They're vying for live theater right now. And there's just a lot of demand for it, but we won't be able to do it until the state allows us to have a full house.
As part of your accommodations, I know you can't fill up the house, and also you're going to have all these demands. Are you going to try to think of a way to add more days, or do you think that'd be too risky, or do you think you'll be able to have maybe 2 performances a day? And are you also going to try to limit the type of plays, I guess? Like, I'm trying to say, like, are you going to try to perform plays that require less performers?
Fewer people on stage also?
Absolutely. I think that's going to have to be a must.
Mm-hmm.
As Bonnie knows, we've never been a big theater company that has 20 people, with the exception of, we did do a reading, Esperanza.
Right, I remember that, yeah.
30,000 people. But, ideally we like to keep our cast below 5, but looking into next season and probably the season after, we're looking at 3 or less.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a small stage as it is.
Yeah,
and
it is. It's intimate, yeah.
It's very intimate, and that's what we love about the Pro McManus, is that it does create that intimate feel compared to going to a big playhouse, and that's what we want to. We have to have that difference. But in regards to adding extra weekends, one of the difficulties that we have is, and it's the same with Desert, is we're always based off each other's schedule.
Right,
so,
right.
Michael, Shaw, and I, and Clark, and Jerome, we always sit down at the table and we go over our dates. So if we want to do 3 weekends, well, we have to make sure it's okay with them, to see what dates they have, as well as does the women's club have those available dates. Mm-hmm. In regards to adding 2 performances per day, or even adding maybe a weekday performance, I absolutely see that possible. Currently, right now, we do Friday nights, and then Saturday matinee, Saturday night, and then Sunday matinee. So if we added a Thursday night and then possibly a Sunday night early performance, that could absolutely happen as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, Shawn Ambramowitz, congratulations again on the grant. That is fabulous. Congratulations to you and Jerome. And looking forward to both seeing your online stuff, and then down the road someday when the theater opens live again. We're looking forward to that. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you both. Thank you. Take care.
All right. We'll be right back with more on the Culture Corner in just a moment.
The curtain rises on local and regional arts and entertainment. From music to theater, films to fine art, it's the Culture Corner. Get connected. Call 760-544-TALK. That's 760-544-8255. Here's Bonnie and Brayan on iHub Radio.
Hey, welcome back to the Culture Corner. We're going to have some news, and we decided to put our 2 heaviest stories together.
Yeah. Heavy.
Oh, yeah. Lord. I mean, but these are important culture stories.
Yes.
So like we said last week, we're redefining what culture means.
Not just entertainment. It's what's happening in the world, too, to a certain degree, yeah.
And so this is actually a bit of good news in the middle of a lot of bad news. So the LA prosecutors decided to finally charge 2 men with robbery and hate crime in Los Angeles on these transgender women. So there's a transgender woman called Eden the Doll. She is an influencer. She does YouTube. All her videos are about makeup and like culture, vlogging. Very glamorous woman, and also about social issues. So every once in a while she'll tackle about being trans and dating. So those are the types of things she would talk about. But what happened, unfortunately, is that her and her friend were going out to get an Uber in Los Angeles and Hollywood. Now, Hollywood, if you've been down there recently, can be a pretty scary place. Like, it's scary at night. But, you know, you would ideally think that someone who lives there would just be able to walk down the street and be able to actually feel safe.
Yeah.
You know. But what happened was that, and it was all recorded on Instagram, video and everything. What had happened was that her and her friends were waiting for an Uber when they were attacked, robbed, and humiliated by these men. And these guys were just beating them and robbing them. They actually did this thing where they robbed their cell phones and then try to resell them their cell phones at an expedited rate. So instead of them just stealing the cell phone, they would mock them and say, oh, you can have your cell phone back for $80. And it's all recorded on video on Instagram. She put the whole story on there because these guys, these idiots, they decided to record themselves. And now that gave an opportunity for LA County to charge them. And what had happened was that originally the district attorney didn't think there was enough evidence, even though the whole 20-minute thing was on video.
What the heck else did he need?
Right? That's what I was thinking. And the whole thing is on video.
Yeah.
And these three women it was horrible watching it because one of them actually got hit in the head so hard they passed out. And Eden actually said that she was scared her friend almost died.
I was going to say, now, are they okay now, physically?
They're okay now. But, you know, of course, they're emotionally hurt.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things is that it actually took a lot of like effort to try to get them to be prosecuted, the men that did this, because what had happened was that, first of all, they already figured out who did it because these idiots put it on social media. Now, if you're going to commit a crime, why you got to put it on social media?
Not brain surgeons.
No, not exactly.
But now, was there a question as to whether it was going to be designated a hate crime? Was that a question?
I think that was one of the questions, was that because it was obvious they were going to steal something, but that they stole something
targeting
and they
them because
they were trans.
Transgender. Yeah.
Now in the video, like you said, what else do you need? Because in the actual video, the trans women get called men and they get told that's a dude.
Yeah.
And in the community, if you have a guy beating you up and saying you're a dude and it's a trans woman, there's a good chance that it's specifically because they're a trans woman.
Yeah, you think? I mean, yeah, hello.
And it's one of those things where it's really a shame that this isn't even like the last time that this has happened. This isn't even the first or last time that this is going to happen.
No, sadly. Yeah.
No, unfortunately. But I did want to get to the Kevin Spacey story because that's...
Kevin.
So actor Kevin Spacey is getting sued by two men, Anthony Rapp, who originally was the first person to accuse him of sexual assault, and an anonymous man had decided to finally sue him, to finally be able to do that. And we were having this conversation, me and Bonnie, about how it's just one of those cases where people just keep shooting themselves in the foot, and it's so uncomfortable now to watch like Kevin Spacey's movies because he always plays a villain, and his most famous role was actually a guy who prayed after
American Beauty, which was an entertaining movie, but when you look at it now in hindsight, it's like kind of creepy.
No, it really is, especially considering how young.
Now, were both these guys 14 when this happened?
Anthony Rapp was 14, and the other guy, I believe, was also like 15 or 14, and they're finally really suing him. Yeah. Now, Kevin Spacey has had a lot of controversy because one of his accusers actually died before going on the stand. And was
there something mysterious about his death?
I think so. I think a lot of people were speculating about it because I hadn't heard him. The funny thing is, when you look up his death, all you know is that he died.
And he was youngish when he died?
Youngish.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that Kevin Spacey puts a lot of... Once a year on Thanksgiving, Kevin Spacey has been putting out YouTube videos of him kind of menacingly putting on a Southern accent, like his character in House of Cards. And he looks at the camera a lot. And so, for me, one of the creepiest things about it is that he actually did this video where he said, "Why don't you kill them with kindness?" And he starts poking at a fire, saying something about his enemies and killing them with kindness. And it's like, you know, Kevin Spacey,
not smart.
Not smart. It's already gross, the whole thing, but
he's just making it worse. Yeah, and that's the other thing is it's hard. It's really, I can't separate. Like I don't ever want to see Tom Cruise in a movie again, or Mel Gibson, or who was the other one? Somebody else. But when you hear about these disgusting things they do, and they've been proven, and that they're just nuts, I can't enjoy watching them as actors anymore.
It's difficult, especially considering that in the case of Kevin Spacey, he is playing a predator in a movie, and
so it's easy to believe that maybe this is all true.
That's true. And the sad thing is that it's one of those. But the thing is, though, at least these men are having the chance to actually speak out against Kevin Spacey and be able to actually have their day in court.
Everyone should have that.
And I think that Hollywood has gotten, a lot of people in Hollywood are getting away with stuff. And you know what? It's an opportunity to let them know they can't.
Exactly. All right. Super.
We're going to go ahead and go on a quick break. We're going to have Michelle Ogle join us in just a moment.
You're listening to Bonnie Gilgallen and Brian Mendoza, talking arts and entertainment on iHub Radio's The Culture Corner. Live from the desert cities of Southern California, here's Brian and Bonnie.
Hey, welcome back to The Culture Corner with Bonnie and Brian. We're trying to reach Michelle in just a moment, but hey, there's a whole lot of things we can talk about.
Yeah, in the meantime, we'll do some news. Yeah, Michelle Ogle, hopefully we'll get her on. She is actually one of my former voiceover students, and one of the other hats I wear is I'm a voiceover coach for a company called...
I think that's Michelle.
Such a voice. Oh, let's see if she's here. Hi, Michelle.
Hello.
There she is. Yay. So I was just introducing you, telling folks about you. She's was one of my voiceover students with Such a Voice. I'm a voiceover coach, and she's fabulous. But her main gig right now, as she's moving into becoming a star voiceover artist, is she's a licensed family therapist. And I thought she'd be great to come on and talk a little bit about how we can all stay sane during what's happening in this country right now, both with the pandemic and the social unrest. But welcome to the show, Michelle. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
So tell us about, we're all, pretty much everybody I know is feeling more fear and anxiety about just life in general than normal. So tell us a little bit about fear and anxiety in general, and when you deal with it with your patients.
Yeah, absolutely. Fear and anxiety is prevalent. We're seeing it so much right now, and I think a lot of people are confusing normal worry with fear and anxiety. And our bodies biologically are meant to go into fight or flight when we're fearful or scared, to keep us safe, to kind of dart us in the direction of what we're going to do about it. But it's not meant to stay there. And so we end up with these heightened levels of cortisol and anxieties flowing. And, lately we haven't had a lot of reason not to be anxious. And, I always say information calms anxiety. The unknown is really steeped in this fear of the unknown and what's going to happen. And we don't have a lot of knowns. The information coming out is mixed.
Yeah.
What one person says stays safe is not what the other person is saying. Sometimes I wonder how people aren't taking death seriously, but I'm one of the real conservative ones who, I don't know, kind of want to live a little longer.
Yeah.
So I'm taking precautions, but other people are not. So there's so many reasons, and there's so many moving parts that I think it keeps us all at a real constant level of angst and unknown and not feeling safe.
Yeah.
Really, it's about not feeling safe and being out of control. And what circumstance has ever presented us except a pandemic where it really, and there's been others in history, of course, that have left us in this complete state of lack of control. Who wants to feel that way, right?
So what advice would you, obviously we as individuals, we can't control everything that's happening in the country. We can't control the virus. But what advice would you have for people in your own little world? What could we do to try to make ourselves feel a little more safe and comfortable?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more in our control than we give ourselves credit for. And if you start thinking about it, even putting on a pant leg every day, you choose which one goes on first, right? So we have a lot of control. So we could, for example, not buy into a lot of the rhetoric. A lot of people are online just jumping in with anger and frustration. Again, lack of control and fear drives us to jump into conversations that aren't healthy, steer clear from that. Don't look at the post every day to see, what Jane Smith said in response to so-and-so. I think limiting our exposure to it, I'm seeing some real wonderful things come of it. I'm seeing creativity. I'm seeing people get real inventive and jump on the right side of their brain and really get creative about how they're spending time with family, things they're doing for kids. So I think we do have to take a little bit of accountability to take choice and put that in front of us and say, really, how am I going to get through this? We can agree to disagree. I don't hear a lot of that. I don't know about you, but I'm not hearing a lot of agree to disagree. Is it okay if we just disagree? That needs to be okay. And a lot of people can't rest there. But again, it's the fear. Agreeing to disagree, letting go of the things that irritate us. Limit the news.
Yeah.
I'll watch the news a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the evening, but I really don't want to know the blow to blow because that keeps me in a place I don't want to be.
Right.
So we can change our behavior. One of my favorite things is volunteering or doing for others helps us get us out of ourselves. It helps you realize that a lot of people have needs out there that have nothing to do with who's tweeting this and blogging that.
Exactly.
And compassion. I wish there were more compassion. I wish, chaos can be a gift. We're looking at these horrific fires, but you're going to see green growth. You're going to see green come back. You're going to see people are taking better safety measures. People are looking at the way they're managing their life. So I don't necessarily think it's all bad, but I'm not always going to be the popular vote either, because I think we need to really appreciate and have compassion for what is still good. Good.
Yeah, I almost feel like what's happening now, sometimes I visualize it as somebody, this table is set with all, silverware and everything and wine glasses, and someone takes the tablecloth and pulls it out and everything goes flying up in the air. And then eventually it's going to all come back down and settle into a new pattern. And that maybe ultimately that new pattern is not such a bad thing.
Yeah, what a great metaphor, too, because I can really picture that. And who wants that kind of disruption? There are a lot of people like myself who really like routine and like structure. But we can still create it. You can still take all those pieces and they still fit back together. But you're right. What if it's a better puzzle this time?
Exactly. And maybe it was time. Maybe sometimes the world, I have found this before where there's something in your life you need to change. You need to get out of this relationship or this job or this whatever. And you wait and you wait and you wait. And finally the universe says, guess what? We're taking it away from you. We're not waiting for you anymore. It's
That's
gone.
True.
And it needed to be gone.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? And so sometimes you have to look at things as a blessing. You think it's chaos. Maybe it's meant to be that way. Maybe it was something you were too scared to do, and so life did it for you.
Exactly.
That's true, because the fact is that I think a lot of people are having a really hard time understanding what new normal is. They think that old normal was all great and stuff, and I think that I think this is a time where a lot of us can realize, hey, we need to wash our hands a little bit more, maybe clean ourselves up, and maybe limit our interactions a little bit. Maybe not everyone we hang out with is as clean or
as worth hanging out with as we thought. Yeah.
Like you kind of have to ask yourself, who's worth the risk
the
for?
Risk.
Right. You know what? You also bring up a good point. Maybe there's somebody that's not really healthy you're hanging out with. What a great reason to say, you know what? I'm going to take some space. And distance myself a little bit. And there's a lot of good. I've been mistaken as a Pollyanna. I am not a Pollyanna. I'm a silver lining girl.
Yeah.
There is always a pearl in something. We've seen it time and time again as history has shown us. And so the creativity I'm seeing, I love people are painting rocks. I go on a walk every day and people are painting rocks and putting them in the dirt that gives positive messages to people. Like that's the little stuff that I think makes the world go around. We can all go down the rabbit hole. Hands up. Everybody is able to go down the rabbit hole. I think we need to be responsible for stopping ourselves from making it worse.
Yeah. Look, I wanted to ask you about, going back for a second, about the Facebook thing and the wars and the arguments and the disagreements and people, unfriending people and screaming and screaming, online and using swear words. And it really is tough. And I've had a couple times when I've just said, let's agree to disagree. And then I just try to stay off it. I just stay out of it. Even if I see something I totally disagree with, I just scroll on, because you know what? It's most of the time it's not worth it. And all it does is get you upset. And you're probably not going to change their mind. And they're not going to change your mind. But if you, as a therapist, if you had a friend, and I have a couple people in my life, I'm not sure, but friends that you're finding in the midst of all this, we're finding out some viewpoints that friends or acquaintances have that maybe we didn't know they had. And I'm finding it that walking that line between wanting to stay friends with someone that you've had a friendship with, but you just can't stomach some of their philosophies on things.
Right.
How do you do that?
I've heard that too, buddy. I've heard people say, I unfriended 10 people. I didn't know their views. I think we all need to appreciate the gifts that come with each friendship. You might have a friendship that's great for going to the movies. You might have a friendship that's great for discussing, current affairs. But I think it's also really appropriate to say, while I love doing this with you,
I don't want to talk about
you and I.
Yeah,
you and I just don't quite mesh on this one view. And I think maybe we should just avoid the topic. Yeah. And I think it's a really healthy thing to be able to communicate and ask for what you need without getting angry. Some people are just angry. They see a war breaking out and they're going to jump in because that's their justification to be angry. And so we're always going to have an angry person out there who's not yet ready to look at why they're angry. But I think just kind of voicing yourself, there are people I won't talk politics with. And I just don't bring it up. And you know what? They're some of the greatest friends I have, but I'm not going to bring it up because why?
Yeah.
Why? It's not going to change anything in the moment, and it might actually ruin a good friendship.
Exactly.
I actually trying to think of the way to ask this, but you said something about how you have friends that are good for certain individual situations, but not good overall for a couple of things here and there. Is there any point that you would say, would you agree that that something is so bad, something is so terribly worded, and this person has such a terrible sentiment, or they're defending something that's really bad, defending someone who did something really bad? Is there a point where you realize maybe I should just let go of this person, and because it really does actually hurt you that much? Is there a point where you can stop looking at the positive things? Is there a point where
deal breaker kind of thing?
Deal breaker sort of thing, yes.
Yeah, you know what? At some point, it's going to be really hard to find good in some situations that just keep getting worse. And some people really like to dwell on the negative. I call them the negative Nellies. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to be able to always dodge the Eeyores and the negative Nellies. But I think I think that you can definitely, again, use your own choice and your will to say, how much is that person really irritating my life? Because it's we put healthy things around us. We try to eat healthy. Some people try to work out and stay healthy. Well, that includes our interactions with people. Probably the most important thing to me are the relationships and connections we have with people. Mm-hmm. And so if something's not healthy for you, it's like taking a hammer and banging yourself on the hand. If it doesn't feel good and it consistently doesn't feel good,
stop it.
Why do you keep doing it?
Yeah.
Right. And so I know it sounds so simple, and I've been accused of making things sound simple, but it can be. It can be. What if we're overthinking it? What if it's just, wow, that person doesn't make me feel really good about myself or the state of the situation, and I'm trying to stay positive, so I'm going to choose to hang around with people that are more positive.
I know you said
that simple.
You said something also about the protests, and just there's some people that are just angry, and they're any opportunity they get to jump on the bandwagon and, hey, I'm going to be angry and beat people up or shoot people. Yes. I'm in.
Yeah, that's really scary, because there are people like that. Oh, here's a reason to go loot.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are frightening because it's impulsive, and impulsive, risky behavior is never good. You've got people that are angry and have pent-up anger and have, this view of it's been done to me directly. There's a lot of reason people are mad. And so, again, another reason to stay out of the way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to protest, and you don't have to show up, with a weapon.
Exactly.
You can protest and not show up ready to fight.
To shoot people.
I'm here for a peaceful demonstration, but you brought a weapon.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's not.
The messages are mixed. So I think to really get a clear message, get your information from the source. Try to stay as safe as you can and be accountable for your own little bubble.
Yeah.
Focus on your family. Really, the priorities, I think, have changed for a lot of people. Family and relationships are more important to me right now than anything.
Yeah. Michelle Ogle, thank you so much. You are a wise lady. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. You're fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Bonnie. I'm so happy to work with you again.
All right. Great advice. All right. We'll be back with more on the Culture Corner in just a moment.
You're listening to Bonnie Gilgallen and Brian Mendoza, talking arts and entertainment on iHub Radio's The Culture Corner. Here are Bonnie and Brayan.
Hey, welcome back to the Culture Corner. Last week we were going to talk about a topic, but this is actually what I like to call an ever-growing, never-finishing story.
Still not resolved, yeah.
No, and this is a story all about a former lesbian comedian who touts being kind as her message, and then it turns out maybe she herself isn't that kind. It's the old fable of, practicing what you preach.
Exactly.
And so
talking about Ellen
DeGeneres.
I always liked her. And the thing, before we get into this, I always found it interesting. I remember the video of her very first appearance on The Tonight Show, before she came out. Her hair was a little longer, and then if you look at her now or lately on her show, she's somebody who, which is what makes this extra disturbing. She's someone who seemed to have become really comfortable in her own skin when she came out as, okay, this is who I am, and married Portia de Reuss. Okay, now we know. Before she was kind of sort of hiding, but now apparently we're learning all this stuff that the atmosphere on her show is pretty hostile, unfortunately.
No, I've been following this not too extensively because it's a lot to unpack. But what happened was that it basically started with a Twitter thread that involved a lot of fans and a lot of former staffers who would say things like she was really mean and that she's unusually rude. And the problem is that it's not that she's rude. A lot of people say lots of people in Hollywood are rude. It's the fact that she touts herself out as being the nicest, really sweetest person. And you would imagine that someone who lost her career because she was gay, that someone who lost everything for a while, would say, hey, maybe I should treat people with a little bit more kindness, because the fact is that there's already a lot of mean people in Hollywood that would take advantage.
There's plenty of them,
we got Harvey Weinsteins, we got a lot of bad people out there. So for her to just create an atmosphere is just so bad. And she actually did say pretty recently that she wants to talk about it on her show. And here's her statement. She said, on day one of our show, I told everyone in our first meeting that Ellen Degeneres Show will be a place of happiness. No one would ever raise their voice and everyone would be treated with respect. Obviously, something changed, and I am disappointed to learn that this has not been the case. And for that, I am sorry. Anyone who knows me, knows it's the opposite of what I believe and what I hope for the show. She does want to actually talk about what happened on the first episode. The first episode of the new season will be on September 21st. It is the 18th season, and she said that she actually wants to talk about it. She said, I can't wait to go back to work and back to our studio, and yes, we're going to talk about it. And this actually happened a couple days after Cosmopolitan talked about a former staffer who said that Ellen DeGeneres would lay traps around the house, like matches, and leave little dirty things here and there, so that way if something wasn't cleaned,
she could blame somebody else.
She can blame somebody and say, you know what, you didn't clean this extensively, I see a match there, that's not great. And that she would fire them, and that she apparently took joy in firing someone. And there was a video of a waitress who said that Ellen was so rude and called her restaurant and said that she didn't like the way her nails were done or something like that.
I did read that one. Yeah.
And that she actually got put on suspended leave, and I think that she actually did get fired. And I do want to make it clear these are alleged events, so
allegations now.
Allegations. Ellen's team, please don't come after us.
No lawsuits. Just what we read. We don't know if it's true or not. We don't know.
But it seems like where there's smoke, there's a lot of fire. It's certainly one of those things where you have to talk about whether or not it's like that thing about separating the art from the artist. How can we separate Ellen being like?
You can't. Yeah, I mean, you can't. Especially when you're hosting a talk show, it's you. You're not even playing a character. It's you. So I'll be really disappointed. I am really disappointed. And the other thing is, the smoke and fire thing. I think you're right. When you have multiple people coming out with the same type of thing, then you really got to take a look at it. I mean, if it was just one isolated incident, that's a disgruntled. But when you have multiple, this happened, that, and it's a pattern, then it's a problem.
No, I definitely agree with that, especially considering that they are going to have, they have had an investigation about it. They've fired one person or something like that, but that they also said that they want to make sure that the workplace environment is positive again, at least that's what they're making it out to be, and that a producer actually did say that that's bad, that the workplace environment's bad, and a lot of staffers have said that Ellen would just not talk to them, say, don't talk to me, I don't want to talk to anybody, and that apparently she is someone that is so good with talking to celebrities and really famous people, but that when it comes to interns,
the
and
little
staffers,
people, she doesn't have time for.
No, definitely not. And she said, this one guest said that she actually, there was this one video that's been circulating, which is that Ellen Degeneres actually put up a free store, right? A little store that says, take anything you want, just take one thing, be honest and have fun, and it's free, right? And so this woman took an extra item, you never, and it's like, okay, I get it, like it's free stuff, so like you take an extra item, I understand the temptation, I'm not gonna get mad at someone,
right?
But it's like when you go to a buffet and you take an extra thing, it's like, okay, you feel a little guilty, but it's free.
It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. If you get caught, put it back. But Ellen DeGeneres actually went out of her way to call her out and record the whole incident and and like you can kind of tell in her face that it wasn't funny to her. Like she was trying to make a joke, but the guest, you can tell, was really uncomfortable. And another situation was that Ellen talked to actress Dakota Johnson. Now, Dakota Johnson, for those who don't know, is the daughter of Melanie Griffin, who herself is the daughter of Tippi Hedren. So a whole famous
family.
Dakota Johnson talked about a party, right? She hosted a Christmas party, and Ellen said, "So how was your party? I wasn't invited." And Dakota said, "You were invited. You knew specifically that you were invited. Don't." And she basically said, don't F with me, like,
wow.
And she called her out, and a lot of people on the comment section are like, this is kind of satisfying now in hindsight, because Ellen DeGeneres tried to basically, some have argued that in that video she tried to kind of put Dakota in a place where she can kind of make jokes and laugh at her expense a little bit, or that she really did feel some sort of resentment, and then Dakota said, no, you knew. You knew. And the funny thing is, though, that same weekend that Dakota's party was there, she actually got a lot of controversy, a whole bunch of controversy, because she actually hung out with George Bush at a baseball game. So
who did? Ellen?
Ellen.
Okay.
So there's a lot of controversy and a lot of things. People feeling that she kind of sells out her community a little bit. And
it's really, I know it's naive, but I always get disappointed when somebody well-known that we all think we know. I mean, we don't really know, but we think we know. Then something like this comes out and it's like, gosh, it's not that hard to be a nice person. It's not that hard to be empathetic. It's not that hard to treat people well. You almost have to go out of your way to be nasty. So if all this ends up being true, I'm really disappointed.
And I think the way this story is going to end, the downward trajectory or the upward trajectory,
her show is probably going to get canceled, I would say, eventually.
I think so. And also I think it would just depend on that return episode. That episode,
what she says, that's the key right there.
And whatever happens that episode, that's going to be, in my opinion, the death or the rebirth.
That's it.
And I'm hoping for the rebirth, but I think at this point I'm going to make a safe prediction and say it's going to be the death.
Yeah, not looking good. All right, Brian Mendoza, Bonnie Gilgallen, you're here on the Culture Corner. Thank you to all our guests. We'll see you back here next week. Have a good one.
Have a good one.